Hello, our friends, EEA family.
Hello there. Welcome back. And the puppies are here and they all say hello to you too.
Hello, boys and girls. It's your Uncle Rama here. Hope you're all having a happy Easter.
I'm having a very happy Easter. Hi, I'm Sita.
Okay, special day it is. When you guys get a chance to check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com and learn more about us and what we do when we're not making videos. Here we had a Patreon exclusive from 2 days ago. About every second or third day, there's typically a Patreon exclusive, but at least one a week. This was a message from the Galactic Federation talking about artificial intelligence and timeline reality splits, wormholes, etc., parallel realities. Oh boy, we got more along those lines that we're going to share in this, but we're also going to give you a news update and some other wild and crazy stuff.
Yes, there's some other wild and crazy stuff at the end of the video.
Well, I think we can all get along here on planet Earth, but again, there's a lot of people waking up to the fact that they've misplaced their trust in the system to always do the right thing and to put people first, profit second. And here we go. This from Wide Awake Media. Dozens of widely sold fruit juices were found to contain heavy metals, including arsenic, lead, and cadmium, with the potential to harm children who drank only half a cup a day. Almost half of the juices tested contained one or a combination of heavy metals that reached a level researchers deemed concerning for daily consumption. The CDC says long-term exposure to heavy metals may put people at risk for kidney disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, damaged ability to learn, and certain types of cancer. You know, we've talked about how when the Roman Empire was starting to really fall, somebody came up with a very bright idea that, hey, why don't we carry the public water supply in lead? And literally, it's history repeating itself. But you know what? It's the same system. This is the part that people are just starting to wake up to. There's different layers to this awakening. The awakening won't be stopped. And then you'll have people that will just kind of choose to ignore it the whole time, doing that, nah, I can't hear you, nah, I don't know what you're saying. This, I've seen and read articles talking about this multiple times over the last 8 years that we've been making videos. It's not the first time. And, the takeaway is, why is it still happening when, this is something that's been ongoing for years?
It's gone on. And what we have now is a lot of people are still choosing to really completely ignore it. And I think it's because they're afraid and they just don't have the ability or the capacity to face the truth, because if they do, that means they're going to have to change their whole world, and that's very difficult. And I think that's something we have all had to do at some point in our lives. But a lot of people are just, they'll make up one excuse or the other, and they'll say, well, I can't because, and we need everybody on board here. But, we can't force people, but you just cannot force people, but you can be an example for what it looks like to be awake and clear and connected.
If you tried to talk to somebody that was standing on railroad tracks and you say, hey, bud, there's a train that comes by in 5 minutes, you might want to get off of those tracks, and they wouldn't listen, they would just ignore you, and there was a bucket of ice cold water there, would you eventually dump the water over their head? Or would you just leave them be?
I wouldn't have a choice but to dump that ice water, because if you leave them be, I couldn't do that, but I can't forcefully pull anyone off those tracks either.
That's what we're being, kind of, faced with. And in some ways you might feel like you're in a corner. Some ways you might feel that you've been screaming from the rooftops for years and still, aren't having any success. There are people that are awakening. And one of the things that we have gotten is that this next wave is going to be including, the next wave of people awakening is going to be including some that are of that group that just didn't really want to because it's not convenient, Well, the owners of JBS, the world's largest meat processing company, have been charged with bribing over 1,800 politicians and officials. They've been importing cheap foreign meats using the product of the USA labeling loophole. It's a racket. Remember, even though the loophole made by the USDA had finally been closed, it won't be fully enforced until 2026. Until then, they can import essentially a lower standard beef into America. All they have to do is break it down here so it arrives into America as a frozen slab of beef, essentially. They can turn it into steaks and hamburger from there, then sell it as a product of the USA, even though it wasn't raised in the USA. It wasn't slaughtered in the USA. This is, again, the type of thing that the system does. China, US, trade wars. One of the things, again, China wasn't going to do anymore was import our beef, but then at the same time, and other countries, a lot of countries won't import our beef because of fears of what's in it. If a cow has a dose of antibiotics, then you have a dose of antibiotics. If a cow is eating GMO corn, then you are eating GMO corn. This just goes on down the line and includes other stuff that many people are waking up to at this point in time.
Thank goodness people are waking up more.
The FDA is removing pharmaceutical company representatives from advisory committees in a bid to limit industry influence. The thing that hits me is, why in the world would big pharma reps be on advisory committees in the first place? This is insanity. And again, we have some good happening. Is it too little, too late? That very well may be in many ways. There's so much that should never have been the case that has been the case. And this has been going on for decades and generations, in real generations. So, there are things. I have heard, too, that they may remove all sorts of pharmaceutical ads just in general from being on TV in many different ways, being broadcast through all the different mediums that we have nowadays. I think that would be wonderful. I mean, I personally am sick and tired of hearing about the 100 things that could go wrong in order for you to cure your acne.
And it's really strange how they talk about the side effects during the commercial, and they're very monotone. They're very hypnotic, and they say things like may cause tumors, suicide, or death. And they have like this monotone, almost semi-okay voice about it. It's like, somehow it makes it okay for people. It's like, you have to hear that. Don't you hear that? And I think they all go to hypnotist school. I don't know, all the ones who do those commercials, because they really do. They just slide it on in there like it's nothing.
Yeah, and as we, say that, we should say that all this is just for pure entertainment
100%.
purposes. And, of course, we are not doctors. We are not recommending anything. All we're doing is just sharing opinions here. Sharing opinions. Look at this bad weather. Again, this is in Venezuela. All over the globe, you're seeing floods like you've never seen before. At the same time, we see all sorts of fake clouds. And when you talk about heavy metal toxification, you're going to have to talk to the military, not just of the U.S., but other militaries around the world, and ask them to stop spraying, because ultimately it is a military operation that really is truly guiding all this. Here you have ABC News 2020 reports on someone called Executive Secretariat in D.C. about a half hour before Oklahoma City bombing, and said the Murrah building has just been bombed before it happened. Well, maybe they were on part of the psychic research group or something.
Well, they definitely got a memo. Some others did not.
Yeah, again, everything has been scripted forever. And yeah, there's an awful lot. This is Doug and Stacy just awakening to the fact that, this has been, again, ongoing for a very long time, as many Danish farmers are saying that A lot of their cows are getting sick and refusing to eat feed that's got a certain substance in it that is not natural. Yeah, again, there's an awful lot to this awakening, and there's certain parts of it that are much, much tougher than others for people, where they can recognize one thing and then not recognize that they're totally believing something given to them from the exact same group of people, the exact same system. Now, the Golden Dome, have you seen this? This Golden Dome is a project. It's going to be very pricey, and it's supposed to put the U.S., wrap us up in some sort of protective dome. We have the Iron Dome missile system, a Golden Dome from space. The reality is that our whole paradigm has been one in which we've intentionally been misguided to not understanding what the control system truly is, and the fact that this is really an intergalactic, interdimensional war. When you say spiritual warfare, please do define it. What does that really mean to you? Spiritual warfare. Does it not mean that you're fighting against forces that are not visible to you, but are still very, very real, and forces that you might say can be categorized to a degree into good and bad labels, so to speak, and good and bad again from the standpoint of life on Earth, because obviously the system that's been in place doesn't really care about life on Earth in so many ways. It's just so toxic and polluting, not just to humans, but to everybody else that's on this planet at the same time. The reality is, you could see this Iron Dome, and you automatically, like many people, when the talks of building a wall that keeps some out, well, walls can also keep people in, and domes, again, they can shield, or they can also block something that's positive, perhaps, from coming in. The system, again, is being exposed for what it truly is, and it's parasitic in nature.
Well, at least they can try to block. They're going to try to block, but we'll have to see what happens.
There are real changes afoot on such a big degree that most people can't really grasp it. Now, again, I think our regulars totally get it. Most of the people that will watch this video really will get it. And again, SpaceX here is expected to team up with Palantir and Anduril on the project, as per Reuters. Interesting. They were even talking about SpaceX owning the equipment and the United States leasing the equipment from SpaceX. And again, Elon, that poster boy for success and the self-made man. Well, you think Bezos was the same? No, I mean, obviously, these are people that are connected and have been handpicked for a very specific task, a very specific reason. At the same time, the ones that are not clones or not some sort of robotic actor, they actually do have a higher self and a soul. Well, this is part of the coming into alignment in a Bronze Age, where they're going to find it harder to go along with things that they always went along with because they were part of the system. So will the higher self start to win out? The only time will tell. And again, there are so many different potential timelines that fade in and fade out of existence all the time. Did you know scientists claim to have discovered a new color nobody's ever seen before? There's been a lot of things that are new that we never really saw before. They verified 3- and 4-strand DNA, for instance. That was thought to be something that would be just quackery. But no, they have identified and discovered certain people have 3- and 4-strand DNA. And of course, in certain circles, to talk 12-strand DNA has been all the rage for maybe 40 years, going back to the 80s or even earlier. Well, new colors, yeah, again, is there something changing in the very foundations of our reality? That's the question that needs to be asked. And I keep seeing channels I never saw of before popping up and making videos on the fact that, you know what, the Kali Yuga's over. We're in a new era. We're in a new age. Oh, you're a new ager. Oh my God, get behind me, Satan. Yeah, again, every single thing that's good ends up getting hijacked by the control system. This way they get you coming and going. Can you believe anybody ever believed this? I mean, the effects are just preposterous. So what does this do when we see such hilarious effects? Then it actually gets people thinking that space is fake, but they have no real explanation for what's out there. It's just, they'll give you the one-liner, space is fake, dude. There's nobody else there. It's just us, just us, angels and demons. Oh, man. Is there any hope for the brains, to actually function properly? Because it is, they're heavy metal laden. That was the first, thing we're talking about is how our IQs have been lowered intentionally and also through genetic manipulation. And then bombardment from all sorts of EMF frequencies. Yes, IQs have been dropping. It's really, really sad. And thus, people still miss and, throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Yeah, some things are pretty preposterous. Yet again, when we still look at it from one angle, people might point it out and say, yeah, we understand what's going on. But then, again, from another standpoint, they're totally missing it. Yeah, the pharmaceutical approach to nature. A lot of people are waking up to this one and demanding actions, even putting laws into effect. But there are those that believe they're above any law. And ultimately, if you stopped all the, human pilots from running this program, would the program still go on? That's really the question.
I know, it's really quite a shame.
And then we have the changes, the real changes that are going into effect. So there's a big coronal hole right now. It's actually a gigantic coronal hole that's giving us a lot of solar wind. But there's more than just the solar wind. There's the whole thought of, basically some sort of energy coming and blasting all of us that's going to literally change our reality in the blink of an eye. And many people have talked about this. There's been many articles written over the years, going back more than 50, 60 years, talking about this and the events of these times. And it's not written in stone as to the timelines, because the timelines are still always in flux. You have all these different convergent timelines. But we did get some info on energies.
We did get some info on energies, and I think we're going to release that over on... Oh, we're going to release it now? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, yeah, so that's going to be fun. We got it a couple of nights ago, and it has everything to do. So whenever I get information in, that's when I go look at the sun, because I know there's something going on, and this is what we found. So I think it's going to help people, give them a better understanding of what's going on with themselves right now. People are kind of struggling, and we really need to take good care of ourselves for our family, because they're probably going to be going through some things too.
Well, Cindy was getting from the guides a kind of cosmic wind.
Yeah.
And that gets me, thinking of Peter Dunov and how he said that. And he was a Bulgarian mystic, psychic, intuitive, spiritual leader, healer. I've done multiple videos talking about him, and he actually became one of our guides after doing one of those videos. It, again, the reality is we're all connected. So if you're talking and you're focusing on somebody and they're not embodied, chances are they're going to hear you better than somebody that is embodied. And he did. So we were able to tap into his thoughts and everything. And then, of course, get information from the guides on this. And this galactic superwave is a reality. And it's not like it's going to be one mega tsunami, so to speak. Again, think of waves at a beach. They're just increasing. And they're going to keep increasing. Again, there's the talk of the birth pangs of a new era, new age. Well, again, we're in a new age. And yet we just simply are touching down our toes into it. in the big scheme of things. So this energy that's coming in is going to be very, very hard on people. And many people are finding that they just got to constantly take naps. They have no energy. They're exhausted. They're wiped out. A lot of headaches, a lot of fuzzy head syndrome. Thoughts don't seem clear. And there's multiple things going on. And the control system knows all of this because they've been through this cycle multiple times, trying to keep people trapped in the false matrix. So they do things to mimic the natural things that we'll go through. And again, when we have the heavy metal exposure that we are under, we need to always be detoxing and really taking that serious, and doing your best to clear out your body from all these heavy metals that literally pull us down and make it hard to focus. And then you have the natural on top of it, which would kind of give you a lot of the same symptoms of, again, fogginess, feeling that something's way off. Have you guys noticed time feeling totally different? And sometimes it feels like time is slowing down. Other times it's speeding up. For the most part, I would say things have always felt like they're speeding up. But recently, it feels like maybe in the last week or two that at certain times it feels like time is slowing down a ton too. And we have many people that we see on a regular basis, and everybody seems to be going through the same things. And so, just be aware that these energies coming in are literally changing our reality. We did Patreon exclusives in the past few months, sharing what some of the things that the guides were saying. And one of the things that we have gotten is that now that we're in a new Kali Yuga, the very matrix itself that makes up this holographic reality that we're in is changing. And, the four classic elements, earth, air, fire, and water, come out of the ether. They come out of this other pre-element. Well, the ether is changing. And now the guides were also saying that our density is changing. So, this is to be expected. But your body is literally morphing. And it's happening in a way in which, you might notice there are changes, but it's not like all of a sudden you're Superman, or all of a sudden you find yourself like a ghost or an angel per se. Again, density is all about frequency and vibration, and again, we're ascending, so we're raising up in vibratory frequency, and this is literally changing the energy around us.
Yeah, and how coherent are you with the energies around you? And the need to be flexibility comes in is very, very important at this point. So our need to mesh with our surroundings, including everything that we do, I think that's going to level up a little bit.
Yeah, we had talked about this in the past, and every yuga is very different from the others. You're heading back into a Bronze Age. We left the Bronze Age into the Dark Age. Well, what happened when we left the Bronze Age? Well, this is when the gods, per se, left.
Oh, yes, then when the gods left. So we do have a lot of information that we're pulling up now to try to bring clarity to this situation.
So, again, Plato is a very interesting character. Again, he was born 428 to 423, somewhere in that area, BC, and died 348 or 347, more than likely, BC. And again, it's on our timelines. In Critias, he speaks of the days of the old gods, and also about the allotment of the earth. Now, there were different sets of gods, and when we are in a different age, like when we're in a golden age, the only beings we encounter are positive and benevolent because they're high frequency. And Silver Age, again, predominantly very high frequency beings. So again, all these beings that we call gods are really extraterrestrials, interdimensionals. And then when you got into the Bronze Age, and especially as we progressed in the Bronze Age towards the Kali Yuga, well, the ones that we encountered were the ones that were all about control. And they were also the ones that ended up setting up the system that we found in place. And at one point, again, right here, in the days of old, the gods had the whole earth distributed amongst them by allotment. Boy, does that sound familiar. It should sound familiar because, again, this is what you have here in Deuteronomy, which only gives you a little bit. Remember a time long ago. Think about all the past generations. Ask your fathers to remind you and their leaders to tell you when El Elyon, the Most High One, gave their nations their land. He set up and divided the descendants of Adam, set up the borders for the tribes, corresponding to the number of the sons of Israel. And that is a purposeful mistranslation. Sons of the gods is the real translation. And so this goes into that Y guy and, Israel. Yeah, how they partitioned it. Well, if you want a bigger part of the story, it's over here in Plato's Critias. Because, again, the whole world was divided amongst them. And they ruled the world. What happened? Well, they left. They left and left the system in place. And, they left. And again, why did they leave? Well, because we're heading into the Kali Yuga. Again, when Rome conquered a country, what did Rome do? It found the people inside that country that would run it for Rome. And pretty much that way, Rome could always move their soldiers around. They didn't have to actually be there. They would still collect all the taxes. They would still get all the gold. They would still get the best of everything. And then when war happened, they would even recruit and pull people from these areas that they've conquered to go fight with them against other people. Now think back to the Golden Dome that we were just talking about, right? Think about that Golden Dome. What's that really about? Again, Project Bluebeam has put in many people's minds that there are no aliens and that there will be a staged fake extraterrestrial invasion. They put that there just in case anybody ever sees a real battle between real ships, from extraterrestrials battling over their head. This is all part of the Yuga cycle. And again, you could look into the Vedic books, of which, they absolutely dwarf anything that we have biblically as far as the vast array of knowledge about how the universe really works. And also all the wars of the gods, which happen most of the time. Most of the wars are right in the Bronze Age where we are heading. And so we truly are going into a Star Wars type of cycle. Yet individuals always have the option, if they keep themselves open-minded and free and clear of all the lower vibes and frequency that the system is always trying to just lather on us so we can't rise up. Well, you always have the option to come back or to try something different, because again, we are consciousness itself. We're having a temporary experience as a human at this point in time. The Easter Bunny dropping the eggs from a helicopter, well, it's just a sign of the times. This was over Black Mountain, North Carolina, that got hit by so much of the, the horrible weather from the hurricane that most people, I think, in the area absolutely think that it didn't have to be, and in fact was just another one of those manufactured situations. So, some will continue to believe in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus till their dying days. Yet the reality is, when we talk about some of our mythology, and we might laugh at the idea of fairies and elves, there's more of a basis for that than there really is, in many cases, things like the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, and others. It's all part of the bigger picture. There are many different souls having incarnations on this planet of different species, and they get along just fine. We could get along just fine too. It's just a matter of realizing that we've been made to be enemies with each other so that the control system can stay intact and utilize us as an asset and a resource. But, it doesn't have to be that way. And again, for those that can break out of the box and see the systems and belief sets that have been put in place by this dark system, which, again, how do you test it? Well, is it a dogmatic approach? Is it that, their way is the only right way, and all their ways are wrong? That's not the way the universe works. It's simply not the way the universe works. And again, most of you guys I know understand this instinctively. You know this. You don't have to read anything in a book. You just know it because it's a deep knowing that's inside you, because you've been through this before. And this was some of the family members we have here that come and join us every night. Literally every single night we're visited by...
Still daylight.
This is weird. They came by last night, and it was like a half hour before the sun went down. As you see, Rocky waiting for his brother Ricky, and a bunch of the girls here that come by. We probably have a dozen or more deer every single night on the property, and multiple raccoons. There's skunks. There's opossums. There's foxes too. Beautiful golden foxes. It's a blessed thing to share with them, and they know that they're safe here, because we wouldn't really choose to harm them, and that's just us.
And this brings us so much joy to look at these guys every day. We thought we'd share.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, they could get along, and one of the things that hits me is how these are two different species, the raccoon and the deer. And they work side by side, and they don't try to scoot the other away to get, their food. No, they just seem to work side by side together. I think we could do it too.
Indeed.
As always, guys, we welcome you to join us on Patreon. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.